Okay, so Descartes is trying to arrive at one certain piece of truth that he can use to establish all knowledge from there on. He's using the method of doubt to get there. He finds it. He finds one truth. What is it? Descartes says, look, I know that I could doubt that I'm awake. I could doubt that I'm being deceived right now, that I'm really seeing all this stuff in the world. I can doubt that my body exists, but there's one thing that remains that I cannot doubt at all, and that's the fact that I'm thinking, because I'm doubting, right? And so, if you've ever heard the famous cogito ergo sum, or since we're Descartes and we're talking in French, it's je pense donc je suis. I think, therefore I am. That is the single truth that Descartes arrives at. Because I'm thinking, I'm doubting right now, and I'm doubting means that I'm thinking, which means that this is one thing that I can be absolutely certain of. So it's from the very fact that I thought of doubting this truth of the truth of other things, it followed very evidently and very certainly that I existed. On the other hand, if I stopped thinking, I would have no reason to believe that I had existed at all. So the fact that I'm thinking then becomes the proof of my existence. And Descartes says that this is the thing that can't be doubted. So we know now that knowledge is possible, that we can establish at least one truth, right? Using the method of doubt, we can establish that I'm doubting, I'm thinking, that cannot be doubted. Okay, so what does that mean in the big picture of things? Descartes is thinking, so Descartes exists. All of that really proves so far is that a thing that is called Descartes existed, right? So it affirms Descartes' existence, but it doesn't do anything for me. What is it that Descartes is then? Well, Descartes is a thinking thing. Okay, what does it mean to be a thinking thing? To be a thinking thing is to be a thing that doubts, that understands, affirms, denies, wills, refuses, imagines, and feels. And all of those things come under the umbrella of what we call a soul. So it's not sufficient for us to accept this knowledge that Descartes has given us, because we have to go through the experiment ourselves, right? We have to go through the method of doubt. We have to establish our own existence through our own, establishing our own proof that we are thinking through doubting. Okay, so here's where things get a little weird. Descartes says the thing that thinks, which he's established as the soul, it can't be the body. The body doesn't think. And I'll tell you how he gets there in a second. And because the body doesn't think, there also can be no thought that exists apart from the thinking thing. So what we get is this view that we call substance dualism. Basically, Descartes believes that there are two kinds of substance in the world, in the universe. There's matter, that takes up space in the world. It's spatially extended, right? It's tables and chairs and kittens and puppies and stuff like that. So there's matter on the one hand, and then there's mind on the other hand, which is just soul, a thinking thing, right? So you get this dualistic worldview where everything in the universe is either matter or mind. The way that Descartes arrives at the conclusion that the body and mind have to be different is through this thing called Leibniz's law. And Leibniz was a mathematician who stated once that two things can be identical if and only if they share all of the same properties. The problem with the body and the mind, or the body and the soul, is that they don't share the same properties. The body doesn't think, right? And the soul isn't spatially extended. So the body and the soul have to be two different things. The body doesn't doubt, will, or understand, or affirm, so therefore it can't be the soul. I know that sounds a little weird. So if dualism sounds crazy to you, let's imagine sort of a counter view to that, which is monism. So remember, the dualist says there are two substances in the world, matter and mind. The monist says there's only one substance in the world. Well, there's actually two ways you could be a monist, right? You could be what we call a physicalist, or materialist, and that's where you believe that the only thing that exists in the world is matter, physical things. Kittens and puppies and tables and chairs and Empire State Buildings. So the physicalist, the materialist, believes in whatever our best physics tells us about. I mean, that includes things that are microscopic because they do physically take up space, right? So that's one way to be a monist. Another way to be a monist is to be an idealist. And the idealist says, well, actually there's no material things in the world. All we have are minds and thoughts and experiences. So if, I'm knocking on a table here, the idealist would say, no, there's not actually a table there. There are certain experiences you're having as if there was a table there. There's actually not one, right? That sounds nutty. And I agree. And no one really is an idealist. There's one way of looking at it, like, say a tree falls in the forest, but there's nobody around to hear it. Does the tree make a sound? Well, if you're a materialist, if you're a physicalist, you'll say, yeah, of course it makes a sound. Sound is a physical phenomena, and it's wave patterns in the air or something like that. And those wave patterns are going to exist even if there's no one there to hear them. But if you're an idealist, remember, and you think all there are ideas and experiences as if there were real things, the idealist would say a sound is something that has to be experienced. And so if there's nobody around to experience the sound, then it can't be a sound, right? That's nitpicky. Like I said, nobody really is an idealist. I'm just trying to give you an alternative to the dualistic perspective, which I think is pretty intuitive, right? I mean, if you've grown up Catholic, for example, you would accept Cartesian dualism because you would believe that we have souls that sort of go on after our bodies decompose. Descartes talks about this on page 18. From this I knew that I was a substance, the whole nature of which is to think, and that for its existence there is no need of any place, nor does it depend on any material thing. The soul is what we are, right? We are souls. We have bodies, is the thing to understand. We could still be souls even if we didn't have bodies, on Descartes' view. So I think I want to stop here for this one, and then I will go on to talk about the rest of the discourse in the next lecture.